High inflation and the rising cost of living are making life difficult for Canadians, and many are no longer confident they'll have enough money to retire.
It makes sense. A lifetime of hard work is followed by a well-earned retirement. But for an increasing number of elderly, hard-working Canadians, this is no longer the reality. In fact, it's increasingly not even a possibility. In this video, we're taking a look at why less and less Canadians are retiring and why the retirement age continues to climb. Is there hope in sight? Or is this the new normal for the older generation of Canadian workers? Let's get right to it. A recent survey from the Bank of Montreal found that only 44% of Canadians feel confident they will have enough money to retire. Rising costs and inflation have longtime workers severely stressed, with people of all ages now opting to live in RVs and vehicles as one way to save more for eventual retirement. The number of workers retiring is going down each year as Canada's economy struggles with record inflation, with business bankruptcies up 37% in 2023 and individual bankruptcies up 11% to over 100,000 Canadians. The financial strain that's happening in Canada is particularly challenging for those on fixed incomes, and there's no doubt about the impact of inflation on retirement expectations. Rising costs across Canada have potential retirees feeling more scared than ever about the future, with a recent poll finding that Canadians believe they need to save around $1.7 million to retire comfortably, a 20% increase from 2020. While Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem has expressed optimism about addressing inflation through interest rate hikes to bring down the cost of living, the proof is in the pudding. And so far, there's no proof at all, as Canadians work until later and later ages and struggle to make ends meet. More and more Canadians are working past 65 because of financial necessity, not choice. As of the most recent statistics, over 1 million working Canadians are over 65, and that number is just going up. People like 70-year-old James Caudry of Calgary is a good case in point. Despite having some of the lowest real estate costs in Canada, Alberta's costs have still risen along with the rest of the country. Despite 35 years of working in a grocery store and 2 additional part-time jobs, Caudry isn't set to retire by 70 and is still heading to work each day. Caudry's $1,200 per month from the Canada Pension Plan and Old Age Security helps, but it's far from enough to make him feel secure to retire, especially since Caudry is still paying $1,000 every 2 weeks on his mortgage. He doesn't know when he can retire, and even with 3 part-time jobs, Caudry is still clocking in daily. What else is he supposed to do? Mortgages don't stop being due just because you're old, and you don't get free food just because you're getting on in years. Bill Van Gorder, the Chief Operating Officer with the Canadian Association of Retired Persons, notes a rising trend of people returning to work after retirement for financial reasons. They try to retire but find that high costs just don't make that possible or comfortable. As Van Gorder notes, inflation has outpaced the government support, leading to financial struggles for retirees. Seniors are taking more and more debt into their sunset years, unable to enjoy a quiet retirement because of constant financial pressure on them. As Statistics Canada notes, around 25% of those retiring are doing so due to health concerns of themselves or their spouse. As we all know, health crises don't just happen at a convenient time or once you have enough money saved up, leading to hundreds of thousands of Canadians being forced to retire without enough to live comfortably. Also crucial to consider is that Canada's just not a very good place to retire even if you have the money. Why? As Canadian personal finance expert Kyle Prevost notes, retirees seeking more sun, affordable health care, lower taxes, and supportive expat communities often find nicer and cheaper options abroad, from Portugal and Spain to Thailand and Malaysia. Canada's real estate prices just aren't realistic for a growing number of retirees, with the national median price for a single-family detached home now sitting at a breathtaking $833,600 and condominiums at an average of $587,400. Surges in house prices in many Canadian cities are leading to a lower retirement nest egg, and options to move into the countryside aren't always much better. Compared to the United States, Canada has fewer options for retirement living communities and like-minded senior communities. Then you get to the weather. Canada's extended winter season of up to 6 months isn't exactly great news for retirees seeking some sunny days in their retirement, and that's not to mention the skyrocketing costs of energy and heating. Clearly, many Canadians would prefer to stay close to family and their home, but Canada's current economic reality and worsening situation under Justin Trudeau is making that a more difficult decision by by the day. With all these problems and downsides, it makes sense that more and more Canadians would be deciding to move abroad for their golden years, and many are indeed doing so. There's a catch, however. If you do decide to leave Canada and retire elsewhere, the Canadian government punishes you. As certified accountant Virginie Vargal points out, when you leave Canada, there are a number of consequences. This includes limitations on tax-free savings account contributions and the chance of being taxed twice if the nation you move to doesn't have a tax treaty with Canada. Tax agreements between countries can also affect the tax rate on certain withdrawals, such as from registered retirement savings plans. Even worse, upon leaving Canada, something called a deemed disposition occurs, and individuals often have to report a taxable capital gain subject to departure tax. Not all assets are immediately subject to tax, and some, like principal residences and registered plans, may be excluded. But there are many financial hurdles to jump over and potential pitfalls. Retirees have to do a lot of work and pay a lot to accountants in order to plan in advance and avoid unexpected tax consequences, and the potential costliness of addressing mistakes later. Here's the reality. According to Statistics Canada, the most recent statistics reveal that only around 22% of those aged 55 to 59 years are partially or completely retired, and only 45% of those aged 60 to 64 and nearly quadrupled. Around 10% of those over 70 are still working. Over a third of men, 35%, and more than a quarter of women, 28%, say they just don't have enough to retire and are waiting for their pension to kick in fully. The standard age to start your pension in Canada is 65. However, you can start receiving it as early as age 60 or as late as age 70. If you start receiving your pension earlier, the monthly amount you'll receive will be smaller. If you decide to start later, you'll receive a larger monthly amount, which is part of why more and more Canadians are deciding to stick it out and work until they're barely able to stand. Let's be clear about the harsh reality of this situation. There are hundreds of thousands of elderly Canadians working their hands to the bone in order to get enough for their pension to actually be worth it. And the government's advice is for employers to be more flexible in creating physically easier work and more part-time options for older workers. Meanwhile, Justin Trudeau is bringing in 500,000 immigrants per year from all over the world, many unskilled and reliant on the social safety system, while our grandparents work until they collapse. Are these immigrants all going to pay into the entitlement programs that older folks depend on? And if so, when exactly will that paying in start? After the years of government subsidies and job grants for immigrants run out and further inflate Canada's money supply and reckless government spending agenda, does this sound fair? Some older folks enjoy working, and it can be a social opportunity as well to feel less lonely. But the fact of the matter is that older age is a time when folks should be able to spend time with family and loved ones. They shouldn't be rushing to their minimum wage part-time job, stocking shelves at Walmart, or hurrying into a call center to work for some heartless telecom company. This isn't the Canada that anybody grew up in. It's a country where the older generation is being treated as expendable economic units and taken advantage of without any real humanity or solutions. Does this sound like a first world nation to you? Is this the Canada we want to live in? Justin Trudeau's Canada is closer and closer to a terrifying horror movie every year, and instead of caring for the elderly and providing a graceful retirement and care, Canada's bloated, diseased economy is forcing older folks to work themselves to the bone away from their family and friends. Canada faces an impending crisis as its senior population is expected to grow from 16% to nearly 25% within a generation. Over the next few years, more than 3 million workers are set to retire, but financial pressure is making that increasingly unlikely. Factors such as stagnant wages, family debt exceeding 160% of disposable income, and a significant decline in savings rates over the past 25 years contribute to the retirement savings challenge. In fact, middle-income earners born between 1945 and 1970 are projected to experience a minimum 25% drop in their standard of living in retirement. The economic impact of this demographic shift, coupled with inadequate savings, poses a threat to the vitality of Canada's communities and local economies. Meanwhile, changes in government rules have made it more challenging for individuals to access retirement income benefits like Old Age Security, or OAS, and the Guaranteed Income Supplement, or GIS, with eligibility raised from age 65 to 67. The situation is made worse by limited access to workplace pensions, with less than 40% of workers and fewer than 25% of private sector employees having access to such plans. Among workers under 29, only 13% have access to workplace pensions. Employers cite reasons such as inflexibility, complexity, and complications for not offering pension plans, particularly in smaller businesses. While the government has made some recent changes, including enhancing the Guaranteed Income Supplement earnings exemption, there is an ongoing call for more comprehensive measures to address the economic challenges faced by older Canadians. There's no doubt about it. Canada's government needs to get serious very fast about addressing inflation and providing a better off-ramp to retirement for aging workers. Anything less would be both cruel and economically disastrous for the whole country. If you like this video and want to learn more about what's really going on in Canada, check out this video here.